Welcome back to another episode of the Heart Podcast. My name is Jagraj Singh Lalli, and joining me today on the show is someone who I consider one of my very good friends, someone that I've gotten to know personally a lot over the last 2 years, Mr. Zach Clarke. He is the voice of multiple junior hockey teams here in the Lower Mainland. He also works at Sportsnet 650 as well. Zach, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to hop on.
For sure. And, it seems like yesterday we were both taking that first day in at BCIT back in September of 2022. Feels like we were just walking right in, not knowing what to expect in this program, and to see how far we've really come now. It's really surreal.
No, absolutely. It is incredible to think how recent it feels. I can remember our first day like it was yesterday and how much we've learned in that 2 years. They really work you hard, but it's awesome because it prepares you for the real world. I haven't yet found anything that's been as difficult as our time at BCIT. But that's what's great about it is, it really has prepared us, and it's awesome to see. We started as just two guys who I believe it was both our first university experience to now, we're both working jobs we love, and it's awesome to see, as you said, how far we've come.
And I mean, BCIT slogan is education for a complex world. And we know how complex this world can really get. But the education part of BCIT, it gets intense. And you and I know that very well.
Oh, absolutely. Many group projects where you're staying there till catching the last bus home kind of thing, in some cases even staying overnight.
For sure. And, before we dive into your career, first off, Zach, just tell me, how has the summer and the off season been for you? Did you get up to anything special?
Yeah, well, it's been nice. I've been able to spend a little bit more time with my family. During the hockey season is also when my sister is away at university, so it's nice in the summer to be able to reconnect with my family. Spend some time seeing that, help my mom move places, which is nice. But other than that, just a lot of preparing for the hockey season. Of course, this next year is a big year for both of us. I know that we want to really hit the ground running, so I it's been a lot of preparation, but a little bit of relaxing as well. As we deserve a bit of time off.
100%. I completely agree with you on that. And I think next year, obviously, the career path that we've been on, we've been going to school at the same time, but next year will certainly feel a lot more different because there's not going to be no more 8 to 5 every single day at Burnaby's BCIT campus.
No, absolutely, and it's something that I've been trying to think about is how I can best use the extra time I'm going to have because, as you rightfully pointed out, when you and I were working in the PJHL at the same time as school, there's just only so much you can do. If you want to prioritize your BCIT schoolwork, there's only so much you can do for your teams outside of that. So now with this extra free time, it makes you wonder, how can I elevate this? How can I use this free time to elevate the broadcast, to elevate my own standing in my career? And so it's one of those things where I'm not used to having extra time after 2 years at BCIT.
It's no secret, Zach, that hockey has played such a major role in your life. So just take me back to that first day, whether it was when you were younger, whether it was now, where you truly fell in love with the sport of hockey.
Oh, I'd absolutely love to. So, a big reason why I fell in love with hockey, my first hockey memory actually was when I was living back in Kitsilano. Me and my family all shared one small basement suite. And I had a very early bedtime as a kid. I was put to bed at 7:30 sharp, but I'd woken up, couldn't get back to sleep, and I went through the living room, and my parents were watching a Canucks game. We were new to Canada at this point. We'd only been living there for a couple years. And so my parents wanted to get into hockey and kind of know what it was about. And so that started to fall to the Canucks a little bit. And they allowed me to stay up that night and watch that one Canucks game. And so I got super interested in hockey, but I wasn't really able to follow it as a young kid until we went to Ottawa for a winter. And my family out in Ottawa, a lot better off financially, and they knew I was starting to take a love to hockey. And so they took me to several Ottawa Senators games. And that's when I really fell in love with hockey, was going to my first Senators game and experiencing hockey live. The atmosphere of the arena, the intensity when a goal is scored. I'll never forget the first goal. Daniel Alfredson skating down the right side, raises up his stick for a slap shot and beats Marty Turco high. And the whole arena just lights up. And as a kid, that experience was just so electric for me that I could never have forgotten it. And when I came back home to Vancouver, that's when I really started to follow the Canucks. And so I fell in love with the sport. And well, here we are now today.
I was about to say Marty Turco. That's a name I have not heard in a very long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. He was a fantastic goaltender, but I was happy to see the Senators beat him on that occasion.
100%. And Zach, when we talk about, okay, you fall in love with the sport of hockey, you're watching it from a fan perspective, but what truly inspired you to become a broadcaster and gave you the confidence that, okay, I love this sport. What can I do with this now?
Well, so firstly, it was hearing hockey broadcast. That was my first introduction to it. Was hearing the intensity and the atmosphere that they were able to add to the game. It just gave it so much more emotion, and I really felt myself connecting to that. For me, it was the broadcaster Jim Houston, specifically his calls like "Great save, Luongo," you know the one, just goosebumps every time. And so hearing that and hearing how each broadcaster adds their own unique things to the game just really made me want to be able to do the same thing. And then getting a little bit older, actually, there was a period of time where I wasn't as into hockey in kind of the mid teens, and I was watching a lot more esports, like video game tournaments. And their broadcasters also, it's quite different, but also very exciting, also very high atmosphere. So I kind of always knew that I wanted to be involved in broadcast in some way. And for a while, I kind of almost didn't consider hockey broadcasting to be possible because it's the NHL, it's the big show, but I personally, my first memory of deciding, okay, this is what I want to do as a career was a conversation with my neighbor's mom, where she said, like, if you could have any job right now, what would you have? And I said, well, I'd love to be an NHL broadcaster. And so she said, well, why don't you go and do it? And I said, I can't be an NHL broadcaster. That's such a high ranking position. And after a couple minutes of discussion, she made me realize, you know what? The only person who doesn't believe in me right now is me. So if I just have that confidence to chase my dreams, then I'll be happy, kind of thing. And it's been the best decision I've ever made for sure. As I'm sure you well know, a career in sports broadcast is just so much fun. It's not you have to go to work, it's you get to go to work every day. It's just an awesome experience to be a part of. And I'm very glad that I took the BCIT program and met a bunch of great friends along the way.
I think I can definitely attest to that as well. When you first have that goal or that dream of, okay, I want to be a sports broadcaster, I want to be a hockey broadcaster, it seems so far away because all you see is the NHL, all you see is the professionals, the big leagues. But then once you slowly start deep diving to the certain topic in a certain way, that's when you realize, oh, there's this junior team right here. There's this team that's close to me. I can start here and hopefully make my way up. Now, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but before you began the BCIT program, there was a couple of years of a gap in between you finishing high school and starting BCIT. So, how did you realize that this broadcasting program was where you wanted to go?
No, absolutely. You're entirely right. I had a terrible experience in high school. I didn't enjoy it. I was very bad at it. I very narrowly passed high school. And so because of that, I kind of always told myself, you know what, school is not for me. I'm never going to go back to university. And so for a few years, I was very directionless in life. I was just working at a liquor store. Not a bad job, but definitely not for me an end all career kind of thing. And after a few years, I kind of just thought to myself, okay, I have to start moving my career forward in a direction. So let's pick a direction and see what I can do. And so it was really through a lot of kind of self reflection of what I wanted to do and realizing that I am not the kind of person that can force myself to do something I don't like. Even if it's for a lot of money, I would rather work for $20 an hour at a job I love than $50 an hour at a job I hate. And realizing that made me realize I have to pursue something I love. I just won't enjoy life if I don't. And so from there, it was kind of establishing myself towards a career path that was both realistic and something I loved. So for a while, funnily enough, I was trying to pursue a career in esports. But after that kind of didn't really work out in the way that I wanted to, I decided to find a different aspect of life. And I forget where I heard this one piece of advice, but someone had told me that think back to what you loved as a child, your first loves. What did you love then? For me, my first real passion was hockey. And so from there, that was when I really decided if this is a possibility, if I can pursue hockey broadcasting, that would be something I'd love. And sure enough, I was right. I absolutely love it.
You started your time at BCIT just as all of us did in that September. And, right from the get-go, right from the first moment you step foot into that SE10 building, there's sort of the mindset, okay, what can I do from here? Like, how will I begin my career? Where will I go? And, I know for me personally, the JPHL was where I first really got my foot in the door. But for you, you got the opportunity to broadcast for the White Rock Whalers. If I'm not mistaken, that was your first full-time gig that you had. So how did that whole process begin? How did you start your time with the White Rock Whalers?
Well, so White Rock was my first full-time gig, but I did have a couple part-time one-offs. Funnily enough, my very, very first hockey broadcast was actually also with the JPHL, although I only did a handful of games for them. And I'll never forget my first game because I didn't get roster sheets, so I was just calling numbers. And it's not something I've done before or since, but it is an interesting thing where you just call numbers instead of names. But from the couple JPHL games I did, I actually got a month-long internship with our fellow classmate at the time, Sonia Kutenbauer, for the Grandview Steelers in the PJHL. And from there, we would do some intermission broadcasting as well as writing some articles. And after that month, I wanted to step into a broadcasting role. And of course, they already had broadcasters with Gaetan and Blake, two talented fellows. So I was looking for somewhere else. And of course, had another connection in my close friend Liam Higgs, who had started as camera for the White Rock Whalers. But halfway through the season, their broadcast team actually left unexpectedly. And so they were plunged into having no one at all to call games. So it was up to Liam to call games by himself for a little while. And after a couple games, he said, "Hey, Zach, there's an opening here at White Rock. Would you like to come join me?" And sure enough, I did. And it's just been a fantastic team. I've done everything I can to stay with them. I'm still with them for this upcoming year. That's a team that really cares about treating its broadcasters really well. I mean, the whole team really well, but they really help us reach the heights of our careers. Anything that we need for the broadcast, we're able to get. And I've just been very thankful for them to give me that first opportunity.
I know before you joined the White Rock Whalers, I believe the year before they made the Stonehouse Cup final, and a couple of years since then, their playoff runs, they have gotten to the playoffs, haven't quite pushed past the pinnacle where they wanted to be. But if we talk about this past season, for example, White Rock making it to the playoffs, and I know there's one game that comes to mind, Game 3 versus the Grandview Steelers in the Survivor Series. Just what comes to your mind when you hear that?
Absolutely. That has easily been my favorite game that I have called in my career so far. Hands down, not even close. So it's game 3 of a best of 3 in the Survivor Series against Grandview. And all year long throughout the season, they had an unbelievable season series. The games were split dead down the middle, 2-2. Each game they'd played, 3 of the 4 had gone to overtime. Every single game was just a close affair. And the way the teams were built, incredibly similar as well. Really physical, not afraid to get into the corners. And so when it came time for this game 3, I knew it would be a close one. What I wasn't expecting was a 5-hour triple overtime where the captain scored the overtime winner. And that was just incredible. One of those things where I had never casted an individual game that long before. And going into it, you might be worried about losing your voice, but the energy in the building was so electric that you could not possibly back down from giving it your 100% all at any moment. And yeah, rewarded with just a really thrilling goal and one that I will never forget. Being able to call an overtime series winner this early in my career was kind of one of those career checklists, if you will, that I know every hockey broadcaster would love to call a game like that. And I was lucky enough that the Whalers put on a really, really good show in the playoffs in that series.
And I mean, going into that game, right? You never know what to expect because a playoff game, it could go into overtime. We know there is this slight possibility if it goes to overtime, it could go as long as possible. Remember a couple of days ago, it was the 4-year anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, between that game between Tampa and Columbus that went to 5 overtimes out in the bubble during the Stanley Cup playoffs. But as that night continued to go on, Zach, as the game continued to be played on, were you kind of secretly praying in your head, like, oh, please, we can't lose now?
Absolutely. I think it was one of those things where, especially, there had been several chances, to be fair for both teams, but I think back to one White Rock in the first overtime where shot from the point gets deflected, hits the inside of the post, and rolls through the crease out the other side. I think if there had been a loss after an opportunity that close, it just would have been too much to bear. And especially talking with the team, just how much they really, really wanted this series win. Especially after they were beaten in last year's playoffs. They at least wanted to get a strong series win this year. And so, yeah, seeing it all manifest in that one shot was great. And what's amazing about playoff hockey is just how unexpected it was, because I think there was 4 or 5 plays before the one that scored that I thought was going to go in. And on the shot that went in, I thought that was just an easy save for the goaltender, but it was a bit of a bouncing puck, a bit of a flutterer in the air, and sure enough, found the back of the net.
And White Rock would go on to face the Richmond Sockeyes in the next round, and they gave them quite the run for their money as well. You know, although there were a couple games that weren't so close, the games that were close, they were certainly nail biters. Injuries do play a major part in, dictating how a game goes. I know White Rock was without a couple players due to injuries and suspensions, but could you have seen perhaps that series play out differently if White Rock was fully healthy?
I certainly think it would have been different. I don't think the overall outcome would have been different. I still think the Richmond was just an incredibly talented roster up and down the lineup, and I think they would have come out either way. But I will say, White Rock lost their number one defender and their number one forward in game one of the series. Not only that, Nathan Brand, our top scorer, broke his arm on the first shift of the first game against Richmond. And I mean, if you're losing your top scorer like that when you're already out your number one defender, there's just so little that you're going to do. White Rock had struggled offensively this season. They were known as a lot more of a shutdown team. An NHL equivalent might be your LA Kings, where you might not find the back of the net a lot, but you're going to prevent a lot of goals. And when they started to just open up the floodgates and concede a lot of goals, and from there it was just over. White Rock didn't have the finishing to match a powerful Richmond squad, but it was still a great series to call either way. The game one was a lot of fun, where we got to play in an arena you have come to know well now, the Eagles Arena out in Surrey. And so it was a great series, but I will say I do think it would have been a little more competitive had White Rock been fully healthy.
You're now heading into, if I'm not mistaken, your third season covering the White Rock Whalers. What are you looking forward to the most this season?
I'm looking forward to just being able to upgrade the broadcast in any way that I can. Our manager, Rob, he really allows us to have a lot of freedom with the broadcast, which means any creative ideas that myself and my color guy Liam Higgs have, we're allowed to implement with little to no oversight, which is just really awesome because it allows us to experiment with a lot of things. And sometimes not everything goes right. Sometimes you'll try something out, and you know what? That's not happening next game. But other times, some segments come through that you're like, that's really great. We're actually going to be implementing your job at Richmond is now going to White Rock. We will have a rinkside reporter. Another classmate of ours, Maddie Buckingham, will be joining us as a rinkside reporter. She was on camera the last couple of years, did a fantastic job. But this year, we got the equipment approved for being able to do some live rinkside hits, as well as some pregame and postgame interviews. We've got a little booth set up now. So I'm really excited to be able to elevate the fans' ability to connect with the team and really actually get to know what's going on behind the scenes as we just look to continue to elevate the broadcast. And I'm excited to meet more figures. Our owner, Ronnie Patterson, he's very well connected, and through him I got to meet my broadcast idol, Jim Houston. So I'm very thankful for that, and I'm excited for this year. It should be great.
We will get into Jim Houston a little bit later on, but White Rock isn't the only team you cover in the PJHL. Last season, you had the opportunity to be the inaugural play-by-play voice of the Port Coquitlam Trailblazers, a team that started in the Pacific Junior Hockey League last year. Just tell me how that opportunity came about and what has being the voice of that team in that community meant to you.
It's been absolutely awesome. So the opportunity actually came about because my color caster, Liam Higgs, another one of my close friends, when we heard that there was a Port Coquitlam team, he's actually from Port Coquitlam. He went to the meeting where the team was announced, and he found the owner, and he said, "I want to be the broadcaster, for your team." And so quickly, we were already a duo at White Rock, so we quickly became a duo at Port Coquitlam, and it was just fantastic to be part of that inaugural season. The on ice product at times, there was struggles. I mean, only a 6-win season for the first year, but of course, what team goes into their first year in junior hockey and sends it out of the park? But the organization itself was just so much fun to be a part of. The arena, it's the nicest facility of the facilities I regularly work in. And the community, I mean, wow, it's a 1,000 seat arena, and there was multiple sellout games in only a 6-win season. So you can imagine this year, I'm coming back, and they are the team that I think I'm most excited to see how much they've changed on ice. Some of the additions they've brought in are really eye-opening, and I expect them to be significantly better. I actually think that despite them only being a 6-win team last year, I think it's very realistic they'll fight for a playoff spot this year. And with the amount of community support when they struggled last year, I'm excited to see just how much they get this year. They had so many figures in the local politics, so many local celebrities coming out to games for the ceremonial puck drops. It's a team that in year one said, we are going to integrate ourselves into the community, and they did a fantastic job. So I'm just as excited for this coming season.
And I mean, you talked about how you are trying to elevate the White Rock broadcast as well, but in terms of the Poco broadcast, I know that's something under your control as well. So what are some things that we'll get to see in the Poco broadcast this year?
Well, that's another one that I'm very excited to say we will have some live interviews. We had one or two last year, but it was a struggle figuring out, how we'd get them to work. But this year, we've been in talks with the owner and some of the managers, and so we'll be able to bring a lot more live interviews with players after games, which will be really nice to be able to hear their thoughts, right after they get off the ice. Something that not a lot of teams in the league are able to do. So it's nice for us to be able to join the ranks of the teams that are able to do that. As well as that, for not just White Rock, but for Poco and Port Moody as well, we'll be trying to revamp our graphics. The graphics that we had last year, they were fun, but not necessarily exactly what we wanted to see. So I'm excited for that as well. And then, of course, as you know, the back end of Flow Hockey has changed. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how to work some things with their new system. I am not 100% certain we will be able to have our instant replay this year, which is unfortunate, as that's something I did like having last year, as primitive as it was, mind you. But we'll have to see if that's able to come through. But other than that, Port Coquitlam, we will be adding some more things throughout the year. But until I have those finalized, I shouldn't speak of them just yet. But I'm very excited for this team. They've brought in some serious talent. The defensive core especially has just been completely revamped. Only one returning player on the back end, and two ex-WHL players coming in for their final junior hockey seasons in Port Coquitlam. So I'm expecting this team to be a lot more competitive.
Marcus Jack is returning to the Port Coquitlam Trailblazers. He served as the captain. He took over as captain at the end of last year. What are you expecting in terms of the elevation of his game this year?
Well, he was a player that was just unbelievable to watch. I mean, when you're on a 6-win team, just realistically speaking, you don't always have that much help. And he was over point a game, the team's first and only all-star, and just someone that leads by example. Every night, he's just someone that, whether you're down by 1 or down by 10, he was never giving up on a shift. He didn't care what the score was. He cares about getting the puck to the back of the net and doing it in an efficient way as possible. And also someone that's just incredibly unselfish. I can think to multiple points in the season where he had opportunities to try to go for glory, and he would take the passing option because it's just that ever so slightly higher percentage of scoring. And, he doesn't care about the glory. He cares about leading his team to victory. And so I was so happy to see him coming back this year. I thought that with very, very little support in his first year in the league, he was over point a game. So with the additions the Port Coquitlam has brought in, and an extra year of experience under his belt, I'm so excited to see what he can do. And I honestly think that he could just light the league on fire. I'm expecting him to be well over point a game this year.
Not only do you do White Rock, not only do you do Poco, but this year you have added Port Moody to your repertoire. And I know that Port Moody's previous broadcaster, Nick McDonald, I believe it was, he was stepping down, which opened up an opportunity for someone to take the reins. Now, Zach, you overtook the position of the play-by-play role, and knowing as busy as you are, how did you find the time to balance your schedule out accordingly just so you can be there and then be somewhere else the next day?
Well, so funnily enough, actually, when they first posted the listing, I didn't even think about applying because they, for ages, had always played on Saturdays. But after doing some talking around the league, I heard that they were moving their schedules to Sundays. Well, Port Coquitlam plays Friday, White Rock plays Saturday, so my Sundays were open, and so I applied. I was very very thankful to Mr. Weeb for hiring me. Very excited for this year. Of course, big shoes to fill. Nick McDonald been with that team for, I believe, 7 seasons. A significant amount of time, and he's a fantastic broadcaster. So I'm very excited to step in for their broadcast. We actually just hired a color commentator, a man who you also will know well. Joseph Augusti will be joining me as color broadcaster for that team. So I'm very excited for that team. As you may or may not know, I started uploading TikTok videos of our broadcast, and my very first one was actually a between the legs goal from Port Moody Panthers forward Austin Todd. And so ever since then, they've got some of the nicest jerseys in the league. It was always a team I was hoping to call more games for. Never thought I'd actually get the opportunity to work for them, but here we are. And so, as you mentioned, balancing the schedule, a little bit hectic. For the most part, not too many overlaps. There's a couple Sunday games where I've got 2 teams playing at once, but thankfully enough connections in the industry to get those games filled. But It mostly comes down to my other job, Sportsnet 650, being just so kind and generous. They've offered to work around my play-by-play schedule, so they give me shifts just based off of what I can do. And I've been so grateful for that because it allows me to pursue my dream of being a play-by-play broadcaster while also working a job in radio that I just absolutely love.
No, that news about Joseph, especially, it does warm my heart in a sort of way because we've known Joseph the last 2 years, and for him to finally break through and finally get an opportunity such as this, that is a fantabulous choice by yourself and Brian and everyone involved in the Port Moody organization because Joseph is immensely talented. He knows his hockey really well, and I'm really excited to see what you guys cook up in the Port Moody broadcast booth this year.
No, absolutely. He actually filled in one day for the Poco Trailblazers when I was out for a day, and he just sounded fantastic. And it was ever since then that I knew, I really want to call games with this guy. I want to get him in at some point. And so when that color position became available, I immediately shot him a message and said, "Hey, like I want to work with you if you're available." And another rare Senators fan in the Lower Mainland, so I had to connect with him over some hockey talk.
So we already know the chemistry is already there.
Exactly.
The chemistry is definitely there. Now, when we look at Port Moody this upcoming year, Zach, last year, these past couple seasons, they have had up and down years, but we know that community loves their hockey. So, how excited are you to be able to connect with the community in Port Moody?
Oh, so very excited to connect with the community in Port Moody. I mean, it's a great place to visit. I go to Port Moody a lot. They've got an excellent craft beer strip. And so I'm very excited to connect with the hockey side of the community because I actually haven't been out to the Port Moody Arena before. As in the PJHL, for the most part, you only call your home games. So I'm excited to get out to the arena. I know that they've got a great staff. I've been lucky enough to talk to most of their staff already just throughout my time working in the PJHL. They're always happy to assist me with name pronunciations, whatever I need. And so it's a community I'm really excited to get to be a part of, and also a team I'm really excited to get to be a part of. They have such a focus on development for not just the players, but the broadcasters, the staff, anyone. And so it's just a team that I'm very excited for. And especially getting to work with Joseph. It's nice because this will be the first time where I'm working with three different color broadcasters. And so getting to have that experience with different people really allows you to hone your own broadcast and kind of spot what you're potentially doing wrong or not even wrong, things you want to improve on. I find that if you're only working with one person, my first 2 years, I only worked with Liam Higgs. And as much as I absolutely love working with Liam, when you get to work with other people, you kind of notice more different things about your game, about your game, about your call. And so I'm very excited to work with other people as well.
Yeah, I know you were saying Liam is definitely coming back with you for White Rock, so I'm assuming there will be someone different for Port Coquitlam as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Port Coquitlam is the only one that we don't actually have someone hired yet. Funnily enough, I actually reached out to BCIT. I said, "Hey, if you guys have anyone that you know of," because of course that's how I got my start, was interning with a PJHL team, and it led to fantastic opportunities for me. So I'd love to pass that on to someone else at BCIT. So don't have anyone hired just yet, but I know that it will be someone different, not Joseph or Liam. So I'm very excited to see who we do hire. We're still in that hiring process, so it's a pretty exciting prospect, and I am very excited to see who ends up on the mic with me at Poco.
Now, we talked about the PJHL, and it's an exciting time for the PJHL this upcoming year, getting to be a part of this league that continues to grow in all sort of angles. And, Zach, I hope, we get to run into each other this year if you're ever out on a road broadcast or, if I just come to visit, taking a game. I mean, you told me this. I have no excuses now because our arenas are so close together with White Rock and South Surrey. So I think I'll definitely have to come out and catch a game.
No, absolutely, and I owe you the same pleasure going out to catch another Eagles game. Of course, I was working as an intermission analyst for the Eagles in their last playoff run. Such an awesome organization to work for, and it's a fantastic product on the ice. Excited to see what Scott Gomez can put together now, as of course Cam Keith no longer the head honcho over there, and so I look forward to seeing what the Eagles do for you next year.
Sportsnet 650. Now, as we were winding down our time at BCIT, a lot of people had specific internships that they got, that they got assigned or the internships that they wanted. I know Sportsnet 650 was a big focus for you throughout the entire time you were at BCIT, was one of your goals. So you go into the internship, right? How did you end up being offered the position that you are at now?
Well, I think that I'd like to say hard work, but I think more a lot of luck as well. in my last week of the internship. So firstly, you're right. All year long, I wanted Sportsnet 650. I'd put it down as my first option the entire time. And I was very disappointed not to get it until finally I got up my last one. And I'm so thankful that I did because, of course, that's our longest internship and most in-depth one. And during my last week, we actually had one of the producers leave. So they needed to fill that role. And well, you've already got someone who's trained and sitting at the desk right now. So on one of my final days, the boss there, Cam, said like, hey, I can't promise you super regular shifts. You'll kind of be almost our seventh defenseman here at Sportsnet. But would you like to stay on and work with us? And of course, I took that opportunity in a heartbeat. It was such a fun internship. I loved every moment of it. And getting to work there it's really been a dream come true. I'm a very, very lucky individual to be able to call that my job. And everyone who works there, from the hosts to the producers to the operators, it make you feel like you're on a very level playing field. No one's got like huge egos or anything. You can talk about anything. Everyone's very educated in the world of sports. And most of all, what I love about the job is that it's sports radio. It should be fun. And sure enough, everyone has a great time. If you do a good job, you will have a good time. And that's what I love about it.
As we continue to navigate our path in sports broadcasting, Zach, from these last couple of years until now, and for the future as well, what are some lessons that you've learned about yourself?
That's really great. I think the first piece of advice that I got when I was starting at BCIT, which has held just so true, is say yes to every opportunity that you can. And of course, some you literally will not be able to say yes to, and that's all right. But if you can say yes to it, say yes, because even if it's something that in the short term you don't see yourself doing, it can lead to connections, it can lead to experience, it can just add to your portfolio, get your name out there. And so I think that's the best piece of advice I've gotten. In terms of things I've learned about myself, I definitely learned that I need to get my driver's license. Got that test coming up soon. But of course, working in White Rock, Port Coquitlam, Port Moody, downtown Vancouver, and living in North Vancouver, the commutes get pretty excessive at times. So that was, I definitely think, the number one goal of the summer. Other than that, just push yourself to your limits, but not beyond them.
The PJHL preseason is coming up a few weeks from now. I believe next week is game one. I know Grandview's playing Richmond at Mineral Arenas, and I've had that date circled on my calendar. It feels like forever now. I've just been waiting and waiting to get back into the swing of things. But for all of our listeners on the Heart Podcast, when can we expect to have the start of games for all three of your teams?
Well, so the first ones vary for different teams. So for Port Coquitlam, actually, they only have one home broadcast, and between a couple things not being ready yet and them not super important about the preseason, we actually won't be broadcasting their preseason game. For White Rock, the 25th will be the first one. That'll be against the Langley Trappers, 3:30 p.m. puck drop. Very excited to get back on the mic. As you know, the off season, it's nice to take some relaxing, but God, we miss hockey so much. I know I'm not the only ones thinking that. So I'm very excited to get behind the mic. For Port Moody, the first broadcast that I will be on will be September 1st. I believe that's actually the last preseason game for the PJHL, or at least for them. And then for Port Coquitlam, it will actually be the home opener that is our first broadcast. So I'm very excited to hop on the mic again for all these teams. The off season, it's nice to take some relaxing, but it's always just a bit too long. I'm always very, very eager to get back on the mic and call some fantastic hockey games.
Zach, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out of your day and spending some time just to talking with me, talking hockey, talking about your career so far and what the future holds for you, man. You've got a very bright future. You continue to work hard, make a name for yourself, and it's evident in all the hard work that you do. So just keep up all the hard work, man. I'm so blessed to call you a friend, call you a colleague, and looking forward to this upcoming season.
Absolutely, man. I'll see you at the top, as of course I know that you are also a man of many talents, and I'm excited to catch us calling a game in the NHL one day.
That is Zach Clarke, the broadcaster for the Port Coquitlam Trailblazers, White Rock Whalers, Port Moody Panthers, Sportsnet 650 operator. Did I miss something? No, no. Thanks so much, Zach, for spending time with us, and to all of our listeners. We appreciate you so much for constantly tuning into the Heart Podcast. New episodes coming up every single week. We've got some exciting guests lined up, so be sure to tune in. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you on the next one.